Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone, again. So I want to start with just asking y'all a question about the little reflection exercise that I left y'all with last time about the sense of incompleteness. Everybody remembers that sentence? All forms of incompleteness are due to the incomplete knowledge of the complete whole, right? And we'd asked if we can find what are some things that you sorely feel about your own incompleteness? And could you find some way how Krishna can make you complete? Did you actually take this, exercise into your chanting and try to feel complete in your chanting? Anybody has a reflection or two, and you had 2 weeks? Actually, maybe everybody forgot about the exercise, but let's see if there's 1 or 2 souls who remembered actually to take this into practice. And if you'd like to share a reflection or two, don't be shy. It's just, it's just a few of us here.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. So a request from everyone, whenever you're speaking, just skip the salutations, okay? Just do it in your heart, just to save time. Okay.
So,
all right, go ahead.
Mataji, couple of reflections I was thinking about it. The first one, the number, the senses, our senses are imperfect, and we make mistakes. Those two, I was thinking about it, and then there are 2 things came in. I was driving on the road and I saw I was at the stop sign and I was waiting. I came first on the stop sign, but the other guy who was supposed to wait for me, but he did not stop and move forward with it. And when I saw that, the mind went it like, okay, I should earlier, before that, I used to have a fault finding tendencies and those things. But because of this learning curve for this, saying that I make mistakes and so the other person on the other side can make mistakes. So I should be accepting the way it is. And then I was, the other point I was thinking about is the incompleteness as well, right? So even though when I chant, my senses are imperfect, and what I am chanting is imperfect, because when I chant, it is not a complete name, sentence, broken words, those are there. But still, when I chant, it is until unless I call the name Krishna with my heart, the relationship, it won't become a perfect. He is perfect, I am imperfect. And I was thinking about the Leelamrita's, Prabhupada's one quote. He was saying that it is about in the Thompson's Park, when the news came and there was writing a lot of negative things, but Prabhupada said that they have written Maha Mantra in bold letters. That makes this message perfect. So that always resounds in my mind. when I chant too, saying that even though I am imperfect, my chanting is imperfect, but the sound which is coming out, that is perfect. I should be able to act. And so that thought
Okay.
it was coming, Mataji. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And also a request when you're sharing, try to keep it brief because we want to give one or two people a chance to speak something. And try to focus really on the question being asked because you shared something other than what I asked you. Much appreciated, but still we have to keep the focus, otherwise we're not going to get through. One more person, maybe specifically focusing on if you got some insight about this point of incompleteness. Okay. All right, everybody's shy. Okay, that's fine. So let us begin now with mantra 1. And it continues quite logically from the invocation. So as we know, in the invocation, we discussed about how to regain our sense of completeness. What is that arrangement? And now mantra 1 will continue to tell us what will happen. How do we apply this actually? And what happens when we apply this? So before that, just a very quick overview again. Invocation to mantra 3, living in harmony with Ishvara. Ishvara can be understood by spiritual vision, mantra 4 to 8, mantra 9 to 11, proper and improper knowledge for understanding Ishvara, mantra 12 to 14, proper and improper method of worshipping Ishvara, and 15 to 18, prayers to Ishvara to reveal himself. So again, invocation establishes the principle of completeness. Mantra 1 tells us how to practice that. And mantra 2, what's the positive result of the practice? Mantra 3, what's the negative result? So we'll try to cover 1 and 2 today, and 3 and 4 next time. So like I was saying, invocation explained how the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is complete. And Prabhupada's comment about all forms of incompleteness are due to the incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. And Mantra 1 is describing how the living entities can regain their sense of completeness by acting in relationship with Krishna. And this essentially is called the Ishavasya consciousness. So let us read Mantra 1. Let's chant the verse. I would have so loved to chant all the verses together. This is something Prabhupada even would do with the ISOPANISAD mantras, just chant through all the mantras regularly. But maybe y'all can take a few minutes before the class to just chant all the mantras. It's very purifying. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kasya suttanam. Everything animate and inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So there's a very, very similar verse in the 8th canto of Bhagavatam, which is spoken by Swayambhuva Manu to the Lord Yajna. Lord Yajna is an incarnation of the Lord. Yajna is actually the son of Manu's daughter, Akuti. And when Manu had retired from family life, he was performing some austerities and chanting the Ishopanishad mantras. And some Rakshasas came and approached him, desiring to eat him. And that time, Lord Yajna killed the Rakshasas and actually saved Manu. And Manu chants these Ishopanishad mantras, glorifying this Yajna incarnation. So it's essentially the same verse, just one word is different. That is Atmavasyam instead of Ishavasyam, right? And Atmavasyam means that it's essentially the same, Ishavasyam, Atmavasyam is referring to the Supreme Atma. And Avasyam basically means that he resides in it and owns it. So there's 3 parts to this mantra. So the first part, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat, everything animate or inanimate that's within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. So as you can see, there's 2 parts to this. There's the controller and also the owner, right? And we also have 2 parts, to our psyche in one sense. Prabhupada talks about that even in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. There's the enjoyer and creator, or enjoyer, or in another sense, pride, or Freud called it oral and anal, or aham mameti. Is this 2 divisions, controlled and owned. And some people, they tend to just accept maybe half of it, that God owns everything, but he doesn't control it, just like the deists, right? The deists, they give the example of like the watchmaker, the whole creation being like the creation of a watch. So the watchmaker creates the watch, and then the watch keeps kind of going on, wound it up. So the universe was made, and then there's no control after that. But actually, our philosophy is that God not only owns, but he also controls it, he maintains it at all times. And this is wonderful because it's a wonderful point. Think about it. So if somebody owns it and controls it all the time, then that also means that he can tweak things at any time. That means he can, if somebody completely trusts him and loves him, can change anything at any time. So he can help devotees. We know that Krishna can change even our prarabdha karma, and he's not far away. He's not just enjoying and controlling as some distant person, but he's very much there in our lives, and he can change things. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he describes in his commentaries on Bhagavatam and so on, how Krishna is simultaneously Mugdhatma and Sarvajna. That means that, Sarvajna means he knows everything, controls everything. When you know everything, you own everything, you control everything, you know everything. But also his Mugdhata. Mugdhata means that he's not aware in one sense, that's to allow the pastime to happen. But he's also Sarvajna. So by that, this constant dynamic, he can do so many wonderful things for us, right? He can change the whole energy at any time. And the second part, tena tyaktena bunjita, one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. And we'll talk more about it a little later. And then the third part is ma grida kasya svidhanam. One should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So Isha is by the Lord, and Avasyam is owned and controlled. Here's a quote by Prabhupada. Everything belongs to God. This is self-realization. My body belongs to God. My mind belongs to God. My intelligence belongs to God. I am spirit soul. I am part and parcel of God. Therefore, everything belongs to God. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Everything belongs to God. So if you don't use it for God, that is called demonism. And if you use it for God, that is devotion. That's all. Prabhupada would like to use this phrase, that's all, in so many places. He just makes it just like so simple. So this word, idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Idam means basically everything here in this universe. That means this verse is basically like a law, and this law is applicable in this universe. It's not so much for the Vaikuntha. It's not also so much for the animal species. It's specifically actually for the human beings. So, and then yat kinsha, everything we don't see. So everything we see here and everything we don't see, and within this universe, Jagat, animate and inanimate. And Prabhupada talks in the purport how everything here is made up of these two energies. And Krishna talks about it in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti, the spiritual energy and the material energy. So when we realize actually that everything, Krishna controls and owns, what should it do to us? Some answers from all of you? When we realize that everything is controlled owned by Krishna, what should that inspire us within with? What does it make you feel? Or what's a natural thing you want to do?
Nothing.
Nothing? Really?
Surrender everything to Krishna. Sarvam Krishna.
Okay, that's good. Surrender everything.
It
Serve
causes
him.
Become humble. Okay.
causes some kind of detachment that we don't own any of our possessions. Why are we attached to them?
Yes.
Why are we going
Yes.
after them?
Yes, these are good answers. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Will be peaceful. Sorry. Please go on,
Yeah.
Mataji.
No worries.
Please.
So one thing I feel fearlessness. We
Mhm.
don't have much anxiety for the fruits
Yes.
of any karma, like whatever we're
Mm.
doing. If sometimes it happens, like it doesn't satisfy to our want or desire, but anyway, we feel like it's Krishna's desire. He knows what is the best for us, so we accept it very happily, no matter if it is sad thing or good thing. So fearlessness comes.
Okay, very good. And there's a few things in the chat here. Which means that everything what we would, I don't understand that properly, but if we follow he's the supreme, be a servant of the owner, Krishna, exchange of love. Okay, very good. Just trying to see how I can put this in the corner so it doesn't block the screen. Oops. All right. So thank you for all your answers. Yeah, so it's much easier for us to accept Krishna's plan as who was the Mataji who was just speaking? She's from DC, I think, right?
Yes, Mataji. Amrita Lila.
Amrita Lila, right. I saw your Karmi name and I couldn't remember your devotee name at once. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then, frustration, anger, it's much easier to accept. Everything is in the control of the Supreme Lord. And so you want to surrender, Sharanagati. And when we hear the word surrender, sometimes there's this feeling that, I'll lose something, right? Or like I don't have a choice. Like somebody said in the beginning, nothing, what will you do? Nothing. I don't want to do anything. But actually, when we realize not only the part that he's a controller and owner, but he's also supremely loving and kind, then, which is not mentioned in this verse, but, we understand that from other places, then, we want to surrender. We want to return to our true shelter. That's what Sharanagati really means. It's not just giving up something. It's giving up simply our false ego. That's what surrender means. And accepting our true shelter. And then Tena Tyaktena Bunjita. So Tena is by him. And Tyaktena, it's telling us how to accept or enjoy. This how part is by offering or surrendering and accepting your quota. And Bunjita is saying you should accept and enjoy. But how to is by this offering. So one should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. But how do you accept the quota? By offering, surrendering. one should offer everything to the Lord and enjoy by accepting the remnants. This is actually our kota. And we'll talk a little bit more about the kota later. And then the third part, ma grida kasya svidhanam. So ma means do not, grida endeavor to gain, kasya swit of anyone else, dhanam wealth. So basically one should not accept other things knowing well to whom they belong. So one should not be greedy for anything else, because greed is something that can never be satisfied. Right? In the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni, he gives a cure for so many things. Like he says, if you have lust, you can overcome by determination. If you have diseases, you can overcome by yoga. If you have a problem with sleep, you can overcome by sattvic lifestyle. If you have anger, you should give up desires and so on. But then he says, for greed, there's actually no cure. Also in the 8th canto, you may remember, when in the pastime of Bali Maharaj and Vamana, Vamanadev basically says, because when he's only asking for 3 steps of land, and Bali Maharaj is saying, how come you want only 3 steps of land? Ask for more, I can give you anything. And so Vamanadev says that if a person is not satisfied with what he has, he cannot be satisfied with anything. Like Hiranyakashipu or so many other examples. They had so much, but it was not enough. And in our modern contemporary world, we see actually that those people really trying to be progressive in this world, right? Like Steve Jobs or, the Google guy and the Dell guy. There's one thing in common with all of these people. They accept just like $1 as a salary, but consciously, because they do get it at some level that if they don't say it's enough, it's never going to be enough. You'll actually go crazy. So, Mahagrida Kasya Svidhanam, just say it's enough. We can practice saying it's enough. And this is something that was so prevalent in the Vedic culture, right? And then just Prabhupada, I'm just going a little bit in the order of the purport, but Prabhupada talks about how this ISOPANISAD is part of the Yajurveda, it's part of the Samhita portion, and Samhitas involve daily yajnas and not too much philosophy and so on. But Isho is very unique because it pertains to everybody and not just renunciants. And it speaks of bhakti, which is very practical and can be applied in daily life, even for working people. I should have actually put this slide in the beginning. It just doesn't flow here. So let's talk a little bit further now about the first part of the verse. What is our kota? When we say we should accept only our kota and nothing more, what is our kota? And what are some examples Prabhupada gives to illustrate what is our kota? Anybody remember any examples from the purport? He gives the example of a cow, right? The cow produces milk, but it does not think that it is my milk. And the calves basically drink some milk from the cow. They can't drink all the milk. So milk is the quota of the calves, but the cows never drink milk from each other. Only the calves drink the milk. The cow's quota is the grass, and they just know that intuitively. And so this is just an example of how it's not just that when we are the owners or, no, when we manufacture something, what I want to say is this: when we manufacture something or create something, that doesn't automatically make it that that's our quota, right? Not just that we are the owners, by manufacturing something. So, so milk is actually a quota for the human beings even. And another example Prabhupada gives is of the dwelling and the laborer. usually whenever somebody creates a dwelling, they put their name on it right away, right? Like they own it. But actually, we never made all the raw material, right? And perhaps you've heard this exchange with Prabhupada. Prabhupada was talking to a businessman, and Prabhupada asked this person, "So what is your business?" And Prabhupada says, "I make glass." And Prabhupada said, "So where do you get this raw material?" And the man says, "I use the sand." And Prabhupada said, "Well, that is God's property, so you're a thief." And then the man says, "Yeah, but I give some money for your movement." So then he says, "Okay, you're a little thief then, not a big thief, but you're a little thief." Or another time, there was one man that was really envious of God because everybody worships God. So he decided that he will do what God does, because he thinks that everybody worships God as the creator because he created man. So he tells God, "I'm going to create men too." So then God says, "Okay, go ahead." And the man says, I will just take some dust and create a man. And again, God says, "The dust is mine. You create your own dust." So we have, no right to claim property over anything, but we have a quota. And also this quota then is not quantitative. It's not like, I'm a small man, it's 2 chapatis, 120 pounds, 2 chapatis, and if you're 240 pounds, 20 chapatis. It's not exactly quantitative. It requires some common sense. And then what is the quota for a human being? What's the quota for a human being? Who can tell me? Specifically, what's the quota for human being?
Contentment, Mataji.
Contentment. Okay. What does Prabhupada say? Who caught on it?
You are a servitor, basically.
Servitor. Okay, you're very warm.
Yeah.
Close, very close. Huh? Food, water, only required for necessities. Oops. Okay, it's devotional service. The quota for human beings specifically is actually devotional service.
Yes, yeah, Mata, like self-realization, understanding God from where we come.
Yes, yes. So we're supposed to recognize the authority of the Lord. So Prabhupada says in the purport, this is directly from the purport, a human being is therefore required to recognize the authority of the Supreme Lord and become his devotee. He must offer everything for the Lord's service and partake only of the remnants of food offered to the Lord. This will enable him to discharge his duty properly. And then he also further says that human beings are not meant to quarrel like cats and dogs. They must be intelligent enough to realize the importance and aim of human life. So fighting like cats and dogs, fighting over properties, fighting over this and that, that's not our quota. That's the quota for animals. Our quota is really to realize this aim of human life. The Vedic literature is meant for humanity and not for cats and dogs. So Prabhupada makes some heavy statements here. And he also says, it's not the quota of a human being to work hard and maintain oneself, right? Because most of the world, what is their predominant activity? They work very hard to maintain themselves, and then they enjoy a little bit, maybe on the weekends, they go try to enjoy a little bit. But this is not the quota of a human being. This is the quota of an ass, maybe, to work very hard. That's the icon for hard work. So if one works for Krishna, we know that he'll personally maintain us. But to the degree that we don't recognize this proprietorship of Krishna or how he is the supreme maintainer, really to that degree we'll have to work very hard. We're not saying that we don't have to work for maintenance. In this world, we have to work a little bit for our maintenance, at least when we are not super advanced. When we are super advanced, someone like Srivas Pandit, he just like wasn't working. And Lord Chaitanya said, how will you provide for your family? He just like clapped his hand 3 times, knowing that, Lord Chaitanya will actually maintain him. So we have to endeavor to, maintain ourselves, but yet we don't have to work very, very hard, if we understand this principle that he's a proprietor, he's our maintainer. And Krishna maintains us directly and indirectly. Indirectly means that we work to maintain ourselves, and directly that means that at the higher stages, we don't even work to maintain ourselves. Everything we do is only Krishna's service, and Krishna takes care of us. So we must try gradually to go towards this, understanding of how we are fully dependent on Krishna and he can take care of us, and how the duty in human life is actually not just to keep working this hard. And, you can see devotees, perhaps each of you would be able to give examples of how someone who's very absorbed in their Krishna consciousness and they really make that their priority, right? They don't have to work hard the same way. Like I have a friend here who is very, very sincere, very dedicated, and, and she's single. And so it's hard for her in one sense to do a lot, but because of her absorption in Krishna consciousness, I constantly see in her life how Krishna just takes care of her just very easily. He arranges, like when she moved from one place to other, she just didn't have to go around looking for homes for like 2 months or something. Just she went and saw the first house, and the first house was just perfect for her. These are the little ways that Krishna takes care of us, or he will just provide with some resources to help us out, where we don't have to endeavor as much. There's no prayasa. And I'm sure you can all think of some examples like that in your own life of how Krishna just makes things easier. Whereas when we think, we are the doers, then we just have to, work so much harder because it's dependent on our effort. So now I understand that everything belongs to Krishna. So I have a question for all of you. Can we take others' quota if it is meant for service to Guru and Krishna? What do you think? Can I take that?
Take, Mataji. We can.
You can take?
Yes, the service, right?
No,
Okay.
that service they
Okay,
will
someone
make it.
else. Okay. Could you explain the person who said no?
They will do it themselves, Mataji. Why should I get involved and snatch it from them, thinking that they will not do? I am the only person who's empowered to do like that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also asking specifically, just say resources, because it's meant for Guru and Krishna, and it's, someone else, it's someone else's quota, or it's someone else is the owner of that, at least the secondary owner. Can I just take it? No, the answer is no, we cannot just take it because there is a secondary proprietor. Minimally, we need to take permission. And we should be conscious because sometimes we see this happen in some devotee communities and it can be really problematic. I mean, I had this experience as a very young devotee. I'm a little bit of a person who's very organized and always stock up everything in the house and, I always have everything available, partly because I think I'm the doer, but it's also in my nature to be organized. But every time my Guru Maharaj would come to town, it would so happen that some of these other devotees who lived also in the community, every time, it was their turn to cook, they would just come to my house and take whatever they needed for cooking for, Maharaj. And, and it was okay in the beginning, but then it started to become too much. So it was almost like they were not taking responsibility. They were just, oh, it's for Guru and Krishna, so I can take whatever I want. It's really not okay, because it's also an exploitation of another kind. We're not fully understanding this principle of how Krishna is a proprietor. So Krishna is a proprietor and the other person is the secondary proprietor, and they're trying to use it in Krishna's service too, right? So we need to be conscious. There's many things sometimes we tend to do kind of unconsciously. Sometimes it may just be a little pen or paper or whatever, but it's good to be conscious of who owns it. Like I think of my Guru Maharaj sometimes because I've served him in close proximity. He's just always so conscious that things are Krishna's property. He'll not even waste a little piece of paper. Sometimes you get these receipts in the stores, and in the bottom, there's like blank, there's nothing printed on it. He will tear that and to just use it to make a little note or something. He doesn't waste even that paper, not like I didn't buy this paper, so like just chuck it, or even if it is tolls, paying tolls while going and driving in New York City. There's so many tolls everywhere. He would just like try to find an alternate route to avoid the toll because it's Krishna's Lakshmi. He's not earning himself. And he can say, yeah, I have many rich disciples. I can just, pay the toll and just go faster. But no, it's the consciousness of, who is the proprietor and how am I using it in his service? And here's an interesting picture I want to show you. Just pictures sometimes say a lot more than words. So this is a nice grass, and this is a nice grass. This is a nice cow who's eating grass. There's a nice cow in Alachua. In Alachua, there's a lot of grass all around, and the cows just graze in the fields, and they're nice and healthy. And so there is this one cow who's eating grass. And all of a sudden, one day, he notices that, the grass on the other side looks much greener. So, he puts his head to the other side of the fence, and he's trying to eat the grass. So what's the point I'm trying to make? I'm trying to make a point about our quota. This is, Krishna has given us certain quota in our life to engage in devotional service. He's given us some qualities, he's given us some abilities, he's given some unique quota. Our tendency oftentimes is like this cow. We keep looking over the fence at other people's quota. We may think, oh, this person can give such nice classes. They can, maybe dress Didi so nicely. They can paint so nicely. This one earns so well. They're so good in business. So we tend to become a little busy looking at others' lives, others' quota. But I want to really give you this little exercise of kind of writing down your personal quota. Oftentimes, we're not aware of our own quota because we're very busy looking on the other side. And we think that, okay, others have this, that, whatever, and how can I get that? And in that process, we neglect what we have and use that consciously in Krishna's service. And the more we can understand this, actually, the more we can increase our devotional service, which is our main quota for human life. And then when Krishna sees that we are using this quota nicely, one thing that Krishna does is that he can increase our quota. So this is actually the way to increase our quota, not just by looking at others and feeling bad about what we don't have, we can look at others. I'm not saying we cannot look at others. We can look at others, but in a different way. We can think about how come they have such wonderful quota, because they have such, a nice quota because they are engaging that in Krishna service, or they engaged in previously in Krishna service, or they just have good karma or something. So no need of envy. Prabhupada said, do not envy. Envy is the main disease in this world. And another practical application of this is, what is the quota our children have been given? Do we encroach on their quota sometimes? I really want all the parents to think about this question, because we tend to want to dictate what we desire on our children, because we see them as an extension of ourselves, and we don't really consider what quota Krishna might have given them. And again, why do we do this? Because we think that a certain thing will bring us happiness. And, Prabhupada would sometimes say happiness by material possessions is the happiness of rogues and thieves. One who's happy by possessing some material things is no better than a rogue and a thief. Anyway, we don't want to just become happy in this way. But the best way is to recognize what's the quota of the children, what are their gifts and talents, and then just naturally engage them in Krishna service. So we should learn. Our life is very short, and we have to use what we have. And the whole process of Krishna consciousness is really the process of empowerment. We have to help people acknowledge their field or quota. And this is something I see in my own life. I was one of those who was quite insecure and, always thinking that there's something lacking, feeling incomplete. But when I met my spiritual master first, one thing he always did for me was just he valued me, and he recognized actually my quota, which I never recognized myself. And it was, he would say that, you're good at this. You should engage this in Krishna service. And I would be like in denial, saying that, no, I'm not good at this. So this is one of the roles of a spiritual master or anybody who's preaching. Help people understand what is their quota. And when we know our quota, then we can try to find a way to engage it, find a place where we can engage these things. And sometimes we may be in a community or a place where it may not be conducive sometimes, and we can try to find another community or society, where it's easier for us to offer our gifts or think creatively and see how you can work around certain things. Even actually our weaknesses, our anarthas, even they can be engaged in Krishna service, right? Somebody has somewhat of a, controlling nature or something. Even that can be used in Krishna service, like by taking up managerial duties, right? Or if somebody is a little bit, lazy, or, they tend to procrastinate everything. It's good to have like a packed schedule. Then there's no time for laziness. Okay. Any questions, thoughts so far? I spoke a lot. Anybody?
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Amitalla. I have a question related to the quota, taking quotas from others for the use of Guru and Krishna. On this regard, I want to give 2 examples. That time, like our Sikha Gurus in Pune, Sadhdev Das Prabhuji, he was very enthusiastic to serve Krishna. And the new Vrindavan temple, NVCC, yeah. And so those temple, like, he was always hankering, how to get the land, how to collect the money, somehow other. He always, thinks about how we can do it. One day, I had been in admitted to hospital due to some little issue. My Prabhuji was there. He came to just saw us, and he suggested Satyajivan Prabhuji, let's go. Haldiram's office is near, and to get some, let's try. So he just went and get 25 lakhs. And during the guest house building, so he just gone, he was looking at the newspaper, and he saw like Bajaj, Rahul Bajaj's mother is just passed away, and he thought how we can utilize with Krishna. He went to Narasimha Prabhuji, Pune temple's president, and he asked like, can I get a letter from you with a condolence letter, and I want to visit Rahul Bajaj. He just went, and somehow other lot of conversation happened, and when they were happy, they got like happy seeing how ISKCON is doing and changing people's life, and they like they were willing to help in some activities. And then Prabhuji is they were willing to give 50 lakhs maybe. Prabhuji told no, the new guest house is coming, it will cost 3 crores, so it will be really helpful if you can give. So whenever I like that time, I always think, Swadhi Prabhuji, why you are following people to get money? And I think like that is their quota, like the people's quota, that is their choice to give where. Then Swadhi Prabhuji replied, Mataji, if we will not get those money in a proper use, that may be misused. And from then onwards, Rahul, like the Bajaj family, they give a very good, like as a part of their tax. So they give very good amount to the ISKCON. So every time my Prabhuji is very hesitant to ask someone, but he is very good, and he also gives 50% of his income. So how like we'll see those kind of
So yeah, so it'd be nice if you can keep it concise again, because I'm sure there's a whole story behind it. But
Yeah.
I think your essential question is that, should we try to get, the money of others and engage it in Krishna's service or not, right? That's the essential question.
Yeah. So with the condition, like
so
they have
it's
ample of things.
Yeah, so the
Ample.
main thing is the consciousness. So the
Mhm.
devotee's consciousness is not that he's taking it for himself in
No,
some way.
yeah.
His consciousness is, there are some people who are charitably disposed. And if we can, go and approach them and see if they want to offer something, because when people offer something, their devotional service begins. So this is just a way of engaging people. It's outreach. It's trying to engage people in Krishna consciousness, but we have to do it with maturity, with proper intention and consciousness. I know in India, especially, sometimes some people can be very pushy sometimes, go to some rich people's homes and just really put a lot of pressure to give money. That's not good, but if we can approach nicely and with the right consciousness, then yeah, it's wonderful. Prabhupada would do that. He even, we can say that he even like stole a deity once, that story. I'm not going to go into it now. But Prabhupada's consciousness is completely different. We cannot do what Prabhupada did.
Yeah.
But his thing was he was just trying to engage it. But he's not using it for himself. The point here is, not using it for ourselves.
But the the point
Not exploitative,
discussed.
not exploitative. Yeah, but it's not exploitative, or it's not because I'm just inattentive. I just don't go do my shopping, and every time I need something, I just go to someone's place and get it because it's for, yeah. I mean, that's just one example, but yeah.
Got it.
So it's the consciousness. Is it exploitative or not? Or is my mood, how can I gently engage this person who has been blessed with so much resources in Krishna's service in some manner? And if it's done nicely, actually the person appreciates very much. Okay?
Got it, Mataji. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right. So then after that, Prabhupada talks about this whole peace formula or spiritual communism. And of course, Prabhupada is just talking about recognizing Krishna as the supreme proprietor. But I want to quote this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the peace formula verse. Where Krishna says, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material existence. So basically, the only reason for any disturbance in our lives is due to thinking ourselves as the proprietor or the controller or the benefactor. Benefactor means thinking that I'm the friend of all. And one of the ways it manifests in our life is, the need for approval of everyone. I want everybody to think that I'm a good person, or that I'm his friend, or we need everybody's validation in the world. That's how the need for being a benefactor manifests in our life. So how to really overcome this? Again, surrender is the cure or, secret of achieving peace. And what is it that we need to surrender? Kind of said it before, but surrender really means surrendering our false ego, giving up our false ego. And the way the false ego manifests is in one of these ways, that I am the creator or controller, right? Or I'm the enjoyer, or I am special or unique, or I'm the friend of everyone, right? So just like, you can take any simple example and you can see how these things become, they operate and how it ruins our peace. Devotees like pizza, let's say. And, I make pizza and I start making pizza with the idea to enjoy, or with the idea that I'll make pizza for the devotees and they will enjoy and they'll say that I'm such a good cook. And lo and behold, that day the oven doesn't work properly. And so then I get frustrated, right? So why I get frustrated is because I'm attached to being, the controller. And so then that creates some disturbance, right? So we can, kind of watch in our life. In Mahabharata, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he asks a series of questions. Who's the best friend? What is pride? And the answer, Yaksha asks Yudhishthira Maharaj, and I think I said it wrong. Yaksha asks Yudhishthira Maharaj. And so Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he was asked, what is pride? He says, pride means to think that I'm suffering. So because pride, what is the basis of pride? The basis of pride is to think that I am something other than a part and parcel servant of Krishna. So I have a false ego or a designation. So based on that, there is a certain kind of pride, because if I am something, then I deserve something, right? And so we suffer only when we think that we deserve better, right? Just like there's somebody who's a very charitable person and he just gives you $200. What happens? You become really happy, right? You just feel grateful and happy and all that. And you think, oh, you're so kind and generous. But then you realize that he gave your friend $400. Immediately what happens? You become unhappy because you think, oh, how come they got more? I also deserve that. So when we think we deserve worse, or when we have no expectations, then we'll feel happy. But the same thing, when we expect or when we feel we deserve, it can cause, distress, the same exact thing based on our expectation. So again, a little personal reflection exercise. The next time you're disturbed like you're angry or upset, or somebody's not giving you enough attention or respect, try to find where your identification is. Is it in being the controller or proprietor or benefactor? Yes. And maybe then you find what it is. Okay, I'm trying to control, or I'm trying to be the owner. I'm trying to get some respect that, I'm unique or special in some way. And then you can ask yourself the question, am I willing to give this up? Can I just surrender for Krishna's pleasure? And when you ask yourself this question, maybe the answer will be yes or no. Sometimes it could be yes. Sometimes it could be a very intense and something deep, like meaning our false identity or our identification with that thing could be very, very deep. And it may be difficult for us to say, yeah, I'll surrender. And then maybe our answer will be no. But even if the answer is no, it really helps us to understand that we are making the choice and that we do have a choice. And in that way, we are taking responsibility, because that's one of the things Prabhupada focuses on in the purport. Human life is a life of responsibility. So even if the answer is no, we can also further ask ourselves, okay, if not now, when? What must happen for me to actually let this go? When will I surrender to Krishna? What must happen, or under what circumstances, or after how long? And then we can see that I'm the one holding on and creating this disturbance in my life, because there can be no peace as long as I hold on to these kind of false identities. Of course, it's more easy said than done, but it's something we can all reflect upon. And just this victim mindset where we feel actually that we don't have a choice and things are just happening to us. This is something that really dilutes the human potential. By not accepting personal responsibility for our circumstances, we greatly reduce our power to change them. And the way we want to change really is by surrendering to Krishna. So as long as we don't take responsibility for the disturbance that we are feeling and we blame it on someone or something, essentially we are playing the victim. And as long as you're playing the victim, we cannot grow. So let's now continue the last part of this chapter. I hope I can finish mantra 2. Prabhupada talks about the communists and the capitalists. So what does this have to do with the Ishavasya principle? So basically, the failure of all the political parties is because they give proprietorship to someone else other than the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So, and you can go through a long list. We're not going to discuss it at length or something. But, in the case of capitalists, who is the owner? The owner is the corporations or the group of individuals and so on. And the communists, who's the owner, the government or the party or the dictatorship, the man in power is the owner of everything. Or socialism, public communities are the owners. Or when there's no God, no government, anarchy, or no property. So it's just full freedom to individuals, really. So the individuals will claim proprietorship anyway. And then monarchy is God is the owner. So king is a representative based on these principles. So there's no, this is actually the proper system. Like King Prataparudra, he takes a broom and cleans in front of the Lord's cart, right? So all these parties, when they're in power, they rule based on these principles. So there's chaos and, there's no peace. And Prabhupada, so if you can simply learn that everything belongs to Krishna and use only our quota, there can be peace and prosperity. And there's a nice quote by Prabhupada. Each and every son has got the right to live under the father's protection. Ma grida kasya svidhanam. That is spiritual communism. Whatever wealth there is within this universe, it all belongs to God. And we, as sons of God, have the right to take advantage of this wealth, but no more than what we require. That's all. That is spiritual communism. If you take more, then you become punishable. That's the law of nature. And finally, Prabhupada ends the purport with talking about what is sin. The root of sin is deliberate disobedience to the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. So disobeying the laws of nature or the order of the Lord actually brings ruination in a human being's life. And conversely, one who's sober and who knows the laws of nature and who's not influenced by unnecessary attachment or aversion, he is surely recognized by the Lord and he becomes eligible to go back to Godhead. And this paragraph actually introduces the next two verses. What happens when we follow the Ishavashan principle and what happens when we don't follow. So again, some more personal reflection exercises. I like to give these exercises because we don't want to just pass the exam. We really want to take this into our life. So what is your own understanding of everything belonging to the Lord? You can just kind of reflect, just enter a little more deeply into what we heard and read. And what is it that you can do in your life? How can you participate and improve in using his property in his service? So take a little time, 10 minutes or so to just, do this reflection exercise. How can you improve? So we can start with wherever we are and how can we take a small step in this direction or plan a few steps and take one step at a time. So that's the end of mantra 1. Any questions, comments again? Any reflections? Nothing?
Thank you so much, Mataji. When Krishna is the supreme controller and he is the owner and he is the well-wisher of everyone, then what is the role that as a parent or somebody will have to play in their family's life? Mataji?
Who's asking the question? I'm trying to, because my video is spotlighted, I can't also see sometimes.
Sadananda Keshav.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, it just helps me to connect with the individual a little bit. Okay, here you are. I found you. Okay, so what is our role? Our role is to serve. That's our role. How can we best awaken the potential or the quota of the children or other family members in our life? Our role is to serve. Our role is not to own or control or manage or just to maintain. Even the maintenance or the little bit of control we exercise over our children is only as a mode of service. How to actually nourish their Krishna consciousness, how to awaken, their true potential. That's our role. It's not to align them to our will, it's to help them align to Krishna's will according to their nature. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, very good. So let us start the second mantra if no one else has anything. And I'm not sure if it'll finish, but we'll try. It's a shorter mantra. I get lost sometimes and I talk too much. But I like the practical application points. Okay, so mantra 2. Let's recite the verse. Kurvaneha karmani jijivishechatam sama evam tvainanyate tosti na karma lipyate nare. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. What way? The way that was described in Mantra 1, which is that you accept just your quota, don't be the controller, don't be the enjoyer, don't be the owner, don't be greedy, take responsibility for your life, right? So if you work in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. Pretty strong. There's no alternative to this way for man. So Mantra 2 explains the benefit of working in the Ishavasya conception. One becomes free from karmic reaction and acts on the liberated platform. Such activities are the only method of freedom. So again, there's 3 parts. One can live a very long life. 100 years is what is mentioned here if he works in this way, and because that will not bind him in any way, and there's no alternative. So there is a whole paradox of working and detachment. Mantra 1, through its teachings, it talked about detachment, right? Everything belongs and it's owned by the Lord and controlled by the Lord. So, that brings a certain detachment. It's not mine. I cannot control it. I cannot own it. But now Mantra 2 talks about going on working, right? This is actually one of the first mistakes of a transcendentalist who thinks that if we don't want any fruits from our work, then we should just stop work. Basically, if you're detached, if you don't want anything from the work, then why work? This was also Arjuna's dilemma in Bhagavad Gita, right? In the 3rd chapter, again in the 5th chapter. And these 2 verses very much are like the 3rd and 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So that's our tendency, and perhaps that's all of our tendencies too, that, oh, why work? It's so much trouble. Better that I join the temple. I know I certainly thought like that when I was a very young devotee. I was just getting ready to start my residency, and that's when I started my Krishna consciousness. And I was so enthused by the whole philosophy that, I went and told my Guru Maharaj that, I don't want to do residency. I just want to do this. And so I lost kind of taste for it. But I lost taste for it because I'm thinking of work in terms of enjoyment. So if I don't want that enjoyment from work, then I think I don't want to work, right? So that is our thinking. That's the first mistake, Arjuna. So our thinking is that work is material and meant for my enjoyment. So just like maybe I'll skip the joke. I was going to tell a joke, but I'll skip the joke for time. So the material concept we think is that either we work and enjoy, or if you're detached, why work? So work and enjoyment seems to kind of go together. But yoga, the whole art of yoga, is to work in a detached manner. So we work with diligence, with dutifulness, with responsibility, and yet no desire to enjoy. And that's the detachments. That means I'm not the doer. I'm not attached to the results. I'm not desiring something for myself from this. And still you work, right? And of course, Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita too. Why should you work like that? You should work to set an example. You should work like that for the purification, right? So it's actually not very easy to do this on a material platform, work without wanting to enjoy or even control. But this is the whole art of yoga you want to learn. that work, but don't become the worker, do but not be the doer, try to know but not be the knower. It's this, paradox. But for us, actually, as devotees, we have it much easier because we can do it for Krishna with love. Because love is something that allows us to work hard and yet be detached, just like parents and children, right? Parents, a reasonable parent, nowadays in Kali Yuga, even this example is becoming a little difficult to give sometimes because some parents are just not caring. Perhaps in India, it's not as bad. But anyway, parents, they work very hard for children because, they love them. So when real love is there, they actually will allow children to make choices. Otherwise, they just control. And then when they control, children rebel. This is what happens as an adolescent, They just feel so controlled by parents that they just rebel, the teenagers. But if there is real love, Krishna loves us really, he's allowed to make, he's allowed us to make choices over many, many lifetimes and still loves us. He still gives ways and means by which we can come back to him. He's just waiting. So before we do something, we can surrender and offer it to Krishna and then do the work. Because this is the whole art of work, that, we're saying we love Krishna. So then we offer everything to Krishna and then do that work. And we have to, so we don't stop work. That's the whole point I'm trying to make here, or this mantra is making here. I'm not making. Just like, you have a bicycle and it's very difficult to balance on a bicycle when it's stationary. But when we move, it becomes much easier. So the whole thing is when we have a positive goal, or, what we're saying is here, when we have Krishna and we can offer him our love, and this is bhakti, then it becomes much easier to practice this detached work. But simply by stopping work, we're not going to become free from reaction. In fact, we incur sin. Even it's said, our Madhvacharya and Vedanta Desika in their commentary to ISOPANISAD, they say that, even the jnanis, who are realized, even they, when they stop work, they actually incur sin. So they have to do their work and offer that to Krishna. So then let's go into the purport a little bit. Very quickly, we'll go through things. Quite an easy purport to understand. And I just made some highlights here in the form of bullet points. Prabhupada starts the purport with saying no one wants to die. Why nobody wants to die is because we're eternal. And we want to live forever. This is what our intrinsic knowledge tells us, and we're blissful, and therefore we don't like suffering. And we also don't like anything to end except our suffering, right? And then he's speaking about struggle for existence. What is the cause of struggle for existence? Jivas in their original condition, they're very alive in the transcendental state. But in the conditioned state, our body has such a tendency to deteriorate, and we spend all our life energy just, trying to stay alive. And this is what Prabhupada is talking about, struggle for existence, starting with our first struggle of, just feeding the body for it to have energy and function. And so we have to eat, we have to work for our maintenance and so on. So, and while doing all this, if somehow we follow the Vedic injunctions, then it gets a little better. But if we don't, then it, totally binds us, karma bandhana. And then why do we take birth again? We take birth again because we have desires and we have reactions to our past karma. These reactions need to get fructified, right? we've all asked the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Right? Because karma is stretched over a period of time. When we slap someone, when we insult someone, or we don't treat someone nicely, a certain thing, the karma is set into motion, and we don't get all of those reactions right away. You've done Nectar of Devotion, so you know all of this. So the life of a conditioned soul is actually made up of reactions to past karma. And we may punch someone or slap someone, but we don't get the reaction right away. And when somebody punches us, the immediate reaction is to punch back. But an intelligent person who has this understanding, he will just think, okay, this is a reaction because of something I did in the past. And if I just take it now, then the circle is finished. But if I hit back, then I start a new circle. So again, we take responsibility as human beings. So we're free to react the way we want to those reactions, and by that change the future reactions. And this takes knowledge, right? So the laws of karma, they're very intricate. And when we seem to suffer without a cause, it's actually such a great blessing, because it makes one ask the question, why am I suffering? And one who's not awakened to spiritual life, he actually struggles for existence. So it's such a nice meditation. Every time something happens, it's we can ask the question, why am I suffering? And then go to the bottom of it. And then 3 kinds of karma Prabhupada talks about, quite easy to understand. Vikarma basically means actions are whimsical and not directed by scriptures. And obviously we have reactions for vikarma, and it causes karma bandhana. And then the word karma here is used in a slightly different way than in other places. So karma means actions directed by Vedic scriptures. So they're doing their prescribed duties, they follow the scriptures, but still these actions are done for oneself. So there's some selfishness. So basically it's like pious activities. So these are better than vikarma in the sense that you don't suffer for them, but you have to enjoy for them. So there's still karma bandhana. And just like people planting trees, making gardens, opening hospitals, just all these social kind of activities, old age homes. And in India, people actually know that when they give in charity, they do these pious activities, they get punya karma, because they know the law of karma. In Western countries, they don't have an idea about this. And people simply think that, you get rich by working hard, you get by speculating in stock, or, whatever. They don't know the law of karma. But when you know the law of karma, you know that you have this understanding that happiness actually comes from piety. It doesn't just come from my what I do immediately, it comes from piety. So this is, a gradual path of awakening the soul, as you can see. Vikarmis, basically, they don't believe in next life. Therefore, they're fearless. Ignorance is bliss. Karmis, they understand that they will get good reactions by good work. So he starts following scriptures and he learns about the soul. And then one who comes to this level, then he starts doing a karma. And he understands then that there's still birth and death though. So then he starts reading scriptures and he learns then how to engage everything in Krishna's service, right? So our karma is actions without reactions. Prabhupada writes here, intelligent men well know that both good and bad work equally bind one to the material miseries. Consequently, they seek that work which will free them from the reactions of both good and bad work. And such liberating work is what is described in these pages of ISOPANISAD. And again, we have two levels at which we can do akarma. And this is nice to understand. This is also described in the Bhagavad Gita. The first level is by executing prescribed duties mentioned in Vedic literature. So this is basically karma yoga. So the moment you add the word yoga, it means that then you're adding the Lord in your actions. You're dedicating it to the Lord to whatever degree. So when you do your prescribed duties mentioned, and then you offer a portion of the results to Krishna, then it becomes karma yoga. Or by devotional service, that's bhakti yoga. This means that not just I offer some results, but from the beginning to end, that means the activity itself, the whole intention, the activity, everything I'm doing as an offering to the Lord. That is bhakti yoga. So this is the difference. In karma yoga, you offer, a portion of the result or all of the results. But in bhakti, your offering begins right from the beginning. When you not just when you put the food on the altar and make an offering of the bhoga, but actually when you just, even when you set out for shopping, even the drive is, devotional service. And then you're picking the vegetables, everything is an offering, right? So, and then Prabhupada, he says later that in the lower stages of life, one cannot immediately adopt the activities of devotional service. Why one cannot adopt? Because in our conditioned life, we're very, very accustomed to working for sense gratification. Prabhupada writes that this is directly from the purport. We are quite selfish, and we want to create enjoyment for ourselves in every possible way. We are the center of the universe, and so it's very difficult actually to go from vikarma straight to bhakti, because devotional service means complete abnegation of selfishness. And vikarma is I'm the center and I'm the enjoyer. But, we have a blessing in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we can actually jump from vikarma to devotional service. But still, it's not a sudden switch, it's gradual. It's not that one can go from complete selfishness to selflessness just like that. The transformation of consciousness is still gradual. You can take the very gradual process from karma kanda to karma yoga to jnana yoga and then bhakti yoga and so on. Or we can take, directly bhakti yoga by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So the Vedic understanding, transforms our consciousness from being most selfish to completely selfless and then Krishna-centered. So, I'm sure Rajvi Hari Prabhu will do the whole yoga ladder when he's in the 3rd or 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But there's the gradual way of elevating oneself from this selfishness to selflessness. And we have the more elevator method by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And simply, actually, by recognizing God and sacrificing a portion of results to God, can save a person from the greatest danger, which is gliding down to the lower species or regions. So Prabhupada he quotes Bhagavad Gita over here, 240. Neha Bikrama Nasho Asti Pratyavayana Vidyate, that verse. And, he says that Krishna says that the greatest danger is to actually glide down into the lower evolutionary stages. And even by doing a little bit, actually you're saved from that. But due to defective senses, A foolish man cannot see himself gliding down in the evolutionary cycle. Bondage to material existence prevents us from experiencing our eternal existence. And a few other points just highlighting from the purport itself. There are themes that we talked about in ISOPANISAD, and one of the themes is defeating materialism. And this mantra is doing that here. A humble, God-centered life is more valuable than a colossal hoax of a life dedicated to godless altruism or socialism. So, a Vikarmi, as we said, he only knows himself. He doesn't even sometimes care for his own children. People abandon their own wife and children sometimes, right? But one who makes a little more progress, then he starts thinking in terms of we. So like extended ego is developed, my family, my country, we humans. But we understand that this is also self-centered. But then finally, when we understand that we are the soul, and then we can understand the super soul, then we can keep Krishna in the center. So it goes from I to we to the stage of detachment, and then finally for God, right? So if we can have this God-centered life, that's much better than all this altruism, socialism. People tend to be very proud of all these isms because it kind of seems like, it's communal or there's a certain kind of selflessness. But we really want to understand that in this socialism and altruism, it is still the extended ego acting, because I'm identifying as this is my family or my nation or, we humans. So ultimately, we want to connect with this Isha, and therefore this, one who lives this kind of connected life, he's much better. That's much more valuable than all the other isms. And finally, devotional service, perfection of nishkama karma can bring one to the platform of liberation, but this is not the end of the journey. And so the way to not return for good is to add bhakti or to add love, to do things with bhakti. Because even you get to the platform of nishkama karma, you still have to come back. It's not the end of the journey. It's just that you don't get, reactions, but that doesn't solve the problem, right? It's only by adding bhakti or this element of love and doing things as an offering. That means, following the Ishavasya principle, not just out of duty, but out of love, adding this personal relationship with Krishna. Only then this complete purification can happen. Just remember that ego, it cannot be fully purified without bhakti. No ego means actually position of servant of Krishna, right? And this is actually the perfect stage of Ishavasya, the God-centered life. We're actually done with chapter 2. I went through it a little bit faster. So any comments, questions? We have 2 minutes. I think. All right. If there's nothing, we can stop here. And we'll continue. And I'll talk to Navdeep Sachi. We'll do one makeup class for the class I missed last week so that we can still keep our time. And I apologize for last week, but I really wasn't feeling well. Okay. Thank you all very, very much. Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful Krishna conscious week.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Dhanyavad. Hari Om.
Okay, now I get to see all of you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Nice to connect with people on the other side. All right, Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.